two things need to be said about this straight away. That this has very little to do with religion. What we're witnessing in Pakistan now is a form of a power struggle going on between militants aligned with the umbrella of pro-Taliban groups known as the Pakistani Taliban movement, which isn't a single movement, a struggle between them and the Pakistani or segments of the Pakistani state to determine who controls the country. And the fact that over the last decade or so, the authorities of the state, the military and the political parties, especially those parties sympathetic to the Taliban, have been incapable of or have refused to do anything about it. We now see the results and the impact of that. And that's the first point. The second is that we shouldn't forget for a moment that one reason these Taliban groups have not been dealt with is because sections of the state still feel, even after this atrocity, by the way, that they can't completely get rid of them because they are linked to the fight in Afghanistan, and the notion of the Pakistani military high command has been that we need Afghanistan to give ourselves strategic depth. Always a nonsensical notion, but it's now exacting a very heavy price in Pakistan itself. And at the time when the United States went into Afghanistan, I remember writing in The Guardian that one consequence of this massive presence of Western military troops is going to be the destabilization and the advancement of terror inside Pakistan itself. So it's a horrific attack. It can't be justified. What the Taliban are saying is, of course, true, that they're bombed, that their kids die, and no one says a word. That's absolutely true. But you cannot justify one crime by committing another.
And Tariq, what about this continuing assault on North Waziristan by the Pakistani government, especially as the foreign troops, U.S. troops in Afghanistan wind down and leave the country?
Well, I think that this is the million-dollar question. Are they going to leave the country? Are they going to take their military bases with them? The latest from there one is that their military bases are going to stay with a very limited number of troops. But the Afghan Taliban has emerged as the winner in this conflict, and there's absolutely no doubt in my mind that they're in touch with elements of the Pakistani military apparatus to discuss what to do now. I mean, they've been close for a long, long time. And so they will be discussing that, which is why the thing becomes much more complex, because I don't think the Pakistani military has given up ever on the notion of taking Afghanistan back once the West leaves. And the fact that the Taliban in Afghanistan, with new supporters, has managed to hold the West at bay and defeated them effectively, politically, if not militarily, is a sign that the Pakistani military has not given up.
The public response has been, as you can imagine, one of shock and outrage and horror. As Mr. Ali said, I mean, this was just something that was completely unprecedented in a way. I mean, the Taliban has been, and their allies have been carrying out attacks against civilian targets in Pakistan for many years now. But we've very rarely seen something on this scale, and it's not just about the scale. I think it's also about the fact that it was children who were killed in execution-style killings, really, at the school. They lined them up in the auditorium in rows and face down, and then were shooting them in the head. And that really has brought about a visceral response from Pakistani. So today, really, the day was spent in sort of like numb horror, I think. Even now, most people who were in offices or in shops, a lot of shops were closed today. Even though there was not necessarily a strike call of any kind and this wasn't being enforced, people literally just did not want to work. On the political front, there was the multi-party conference, the all-party conference, which you spoke about earlier and alluded to. That ended a little while ago, but it's not really ended up with anything concrete. I mean, Prime Minister Nawaz Sharif really held a press conference with all of the leaders beside him, which was a show of unity, but they didn't say anything concrete. They essentially just said, we will come up with a plan in the next week that will be a united plan to resolve the issue of extremism, which is a really nothing statement, to be honest.